Fight!
Welcome and good morning, everyone. There's still a few seats up here in the front row. There are also somebody squeeze in, meet your neighbor, make friends, and all that good stuff. Welcome to this Fireside Chat this morning. I have two distinguished guests who have been key to seeing not just innovation, but transformation from the bottom up and sit on companies that are what I would consider ahead of the curve in a lot of respects, but also I think there's a lot of learning we can do from their expertise and the things that they're working on. So we're talking about reimagining grid architecture. We can't do all the fundamentally big things if that's not established, right? Because without that, we could have the best ambition, the best workers, but things crumble beneath us if that architecture is not there. But a lot of the question comes to, what is that architecture? What does that look like? Well, we have two experts here that are going to tell you a little bit about themselves, and then we'll dive into a good conversation. So Joe, I'll start with you, if you want to give a quick intro for the audience, and then Chris.
Sure. Thank you, Jason. My name is Joel Austin. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Digital Officer at Oncor. We are the fifth largest power transmission and distribution company in the country, largest in Texas. Our service territory spans northeast, west, and then just down to north of Austin in the state. At Oncor, the Chief Digital Officer basically is responsible for technology, for customer engagement, measurement and billing, and market relations, kind of a meter-to-cash type view of the business. And my career track was primarily through technology. I was the Chief Information Officer at Oncor for almost a decade, and now the Chief Information Officer reports into my area of responsibility. So it's a pretty wide swath of the company, very focused on operations, very focused on our customers, on transformation, on digital. We were joking as we sat and listened to the opener. He basically covered everything we were going to talk about. So just whatever he said, that's what we do.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Jason. Thank you for having me and Anterix here. We're excited to be part again of the Thought Summit, particularly with this concept of Imagine. So Anterix is a wireless broadband company. We're founded by the team that founded Nextel. We're focused exclusively on the utility sector. So we have a half dozen utility customers who are deploying wireless broadband networks across 15 states. But our goal is really to address all the things that Joel just identified. So we've gathered 115 companies into our ecosystem to drive utility solutions to address everything that Stuart just raised. I agree with Joel. Stuart stole both of our talking points. So the only thing I'm going to take away from the initial part is invest in copper, and and B, I don't like Stuart. But our goal really is to help enable the modernization of the grid, to become the underpinning, the broadband underpinning that'll capture the data that utilities will analyze and aggregate and act upon, because the reality is the future for all of those issues that Joel just identified is data rich. And so at Anterix, our goal really is to help enable that data rich future.
Thank you. So the first question is actually for both of you in talking like big picture. What is the risk of not acting? But also in the context that there are trade-offs in when you put the amount of risk. I mean, Joel, you guys have a multi-billion-dollar plan over 5 years there. So you have decisions to make on how you allocate that. But it seems like you guys have made the bet that you're going to go all in because the risk of inaction is much greater than without taking on the risk. So you can talk about that.
Well, luckily for us, our market mandate doesn't give us the option to not act. I tend to think of the opportunities that we face as those of disruption. And technology, which is fundamental to sort of my career path, has sort of swept over companies like ours, and we are now technology companies as much as anything else. And the risk of inaction is always that technology will disrupt whatever your industry is, and then you will find your customers choosing other solutions. And I don't think our industry is any different. There are customers at the end of all of those 4 million endpoints or meters that we have as a part of our asset base, and we're in the business of satisfying those customers and aspiring to exceed expectations, which is a bit of a cultural shift for the electric industry and the utility industry in general. I've witnessed it for the 32 years that I've been in and around the family of companies of which Oncor is a part. And if you do not act, then technology will disrupt and you will find yourself out of business. And fortunately in the state of Texas, we take a very progressive view of providing opportunities for our residents and our businesses. And as Stuart was saying before, electrification is a big part of almost everybody's plans. If you just look at load requests and those businesses that are moving, particularly into the Oncor service territory, it cuts a very wide swath across tech, manufacturing. We serve the Permian Delaware basins out in West Texas, electrification of that entire process. So the need for the product that we provide has never been as high as it is right now. So a little bit around, inaction isn't an option. I think we're all pointed at trying to do the best job we possibly can to meet that demand in a state where the growth both of residents moving into the state and businesses growing in the state has never been as high as it is right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'll pile on. Inaction is inconceivable, right? It's the reality of what utilities are facing. Stuart mentioned some of it, but more robust, more frequent state-sponsored cyber incursions, more intense, more frequent, really quite scary weather patterns, right? Austin had an ice storm that was biblical in nature. You put in there the call for decarbonization, the requirement to integrate distributed renewable energy that the utility doesn't own from time to time. You're asking utilities to be more energy equitable. You're asking them to electrify everything. You're asking companies like Oncor to take on greater load, not just because of that electrification, but because people are moving into their service territory. So you can't do all of that without modernizing, without investing. And the reality is, utilities are facing sort of a multifaceted reality that's calling, really screaming for them to invest. And imagine a future where there you go. Put the word in there, Jason. Imagine a future where they didn't invest. And I really think that's inconceivable.
And Joel, you opened up, you talked about several of the operations that fall under you, and we're talking about next step change. So of those, is there one in particular that you see that is going to see the most change over the next 5 years?
Well, I'd be naive not to just jump on the hype of artificial intelligence and the prospects for technological change. I've been at this a while, so I've seen technologies that were promised to come in and change everything and eliminate everybody's jobs and fundamentally change how work was done. I've seen a lot of that partially succeed. I think if you look at what so far, and we've probably all been to conferences or in conversations about what companies, not just in our sector, but in other sectors, are doing with artificial intelligence, and there is a lot of promise. There's also, at this point, a lot of, I think we're perhaps getting the cart in front of the horse around where it will end up. I don't think we really know where it will end up, but technology tends to drive change in every aspect of how we deliver service to our customers. So what can we do with artificial intelligence? Well, the same prospect of what we could do with robotic process automation and becoming more efficient, what we can do with telecommunications technology and sensors to provide better data to all of the functions of the company that are trying to accomplish their mission that's a part of the supply chain of delivering electricity, and ultimately what better information can we provide to our customers, whether it's around service restoration, service orders, work orders, new construction. The promise of AI to help us do a better job in that space is certainly there. Right now, I personally consider it to be a promise. It's not a reality. Generative AI is, everybody's looking at it, everybody's trying to figure out, how we're going to exploit that. I've heard a lot of use cases at different conventions and conversations I've been a part of, where it is freeing up some element of people's time, specific roles, to do higher order work, which is a good thing. But ultimately, for me anyway, at least in my lens, it's hard to see it replacing the workforce, hard to see it. I think it just changes what we do as a workforce and perhaps helps us with some of that work now which may become fully automated and handled. My dream is the Oncor executive that is responsible for how we interact with our customers, is that if we were to have these huge climate events like Stuart was describing, which impact hundreds of thousands of those, that we can handle all of those interactions at scale, just like we would if there was only 10 of them. That's really, I think, the promise that I'm looking for out of this new technology, is being able to provide every customer an experience that was like they were talking to one of us, whether they're on our digital platforms, whether they're actually interacting with something in a contact center. The highest CSAT scores we get are if somebody is talking to one of our people. Mm-hmm. But right behind that is if they are interacting with us digitally and we are providing them the right information. So both of those, I think, have promise, and technology is going to help in that space immensely. And we could talk for the rest of our time about what it's going to do elsewhere, but I'm going to stop.
Yeah. And Chris, so you kind of talked to a lot of utilities around the country. What are they telling you, like, are there bottlenecks to getting that they need to remove, so that way they can take advantage of some of these emerging technologies or just emerging tools to do their job better? Yeah,
Jason, it's a great question. I mean, I think one of the things we're seeing, and I'll focus on Anterix just for a moment, is broadband can be utilized to address a range of issues. So actually, our first 6 customers each had a different primary use case that justified their capital expenditure, which is pretty amazing. What we're seeing now is, because broadband to some extent can help address a range of use cases, the deployment of it is moving up into the C-suite, right? So we're seeing it go all the way up to the CEO level, which makes it an important investment, and so it takes a little longer to sort of get there. I think we all recognize that the utility sector isn't the fastest moving sector with regard to embracing new technologies. But to be honest, I think we all understand why that completely makes sense. So what we're experiencing is the pace is picking up. When you have organizations like the Utility Broadband Alliance that now has 30 utility members and 100 companies, and different organizations are now focusing on that element of the modernization of the grid, the pace is starting to pick up. There's a lot of language in the bipartisan legislation about data and the capture and analysis and action upon data. So we're seeing a fair amount of attention paid to it, and I think that's removing the bottlenecks. But again, they have to be removed, because it doesn't have to be about broadband, but the grid has to be modernized. And I think we all recognize it. There's a new reality that will exist in the next 5 years for the grid, for the work that Joel and the team at Oncor and others do.
And Joel, I think we talked about this a little earlier. So Oncor, one of the first in the nation, had one of the most advanced like outage systems, very progressive when it comes to AMI. You guys are early on that. There was an article, as I mentioned earlier, from 2012, talking about big data and partnerships. So you guys have laid that foundation. How has that prepared you guys for what you just talked about, not just AI, but emerging customer needs? How does that set Oncor up to not just lead, but also teach their peers about how we can create that next generation architecture?
Well, I'll start by saying we were very fortunate to be in Texas, where our legislators and regulators were highly encouraging of deploying digital metering. And because of that advent, we were early on in the creation of the data that is the product from that digital metering system. And its utilization is whole. I mean, it covers the entire aspect of how we run our business, from providing information to customers about the status of their service. We were among, if not the first in the world, to actually integrate the signals from those meters into the outage system, along with some logic, which could then speed up our ability to recognize when we were having an event. And so the creation of that data and our ability to, over time, ensure the integrity and the reliability and the availability of that data, then was compounded with where else can we be grabbing data so that we can start applying higher order analytics to it. We can get truly predictive, start eliminating equipment outage before equipment failure, before it happened, and ultimately providing a better experience to those that we serve. And that, to me, is the single biggest advantage which applies to all of our businesses today, is the more reliable and relevant data that you have that is available, and you have the skill sets and the technology to exploit that, the easier it is to run your operations, and perhaps you're better situated to deal with new problems as you are faced with them.
Thank you there. So there's a lot there to unpack, but also want to bring it back to the customer a little bit there. And Chris, and get your thoughts, because we can do all these things behind the meters happening within the utility, and we talk about it at forums like this. I think we are all part of the converted and all are willing to move in the same direction. But how do we bring the customers along, not just customers, but also stakeholders, policymakers, and sometimes parties that traditionally may not work together? And you guys have done a lot of coalition building, so I think want to get your feedback on that.
Jason, I think that's key, is sort of coalition building, education. The ultimate goal is to serve the customer better, right? Everything Joel's talking about is designed to be more resilient, more uptime, keep the customer aware, make sure the customer is happy and confident in the company and in the service that they provide. I do think there's a micro level education effort there with regard to what, all the great work that Oncor and others are doing to really ensure that the customer has a good experience. I think there's a macro level education efforts that's necessary to state policymakers and federal policymakers, so that they understand that there is a massive need for investment on a scale that they haven't seen before. I think, and I wish money would flow more quickly out of the Department of Energy from the bipartisan legislation and the opportunities that it created. I wish that public utility commissions would be more keen on embracing the need for modernization within their states and within a utility's footprints, because the only way we're going to address the 15 things that Joel and Stuart and everyone's going to talk about is through investment, is through modernization. So to me, it's about education, it's coalition building, it's working with the state public utility commissions, it's working with the different trade associations, and really driving a message and a messaging campaign that involves modernization to the benefit of the consumer. I think we all recognize that electric utility wallet share is going to change as we electrify more and more of our day-to-day expenditures. But managing that in a way that keeps customers content, I think is going to take some effort.
And the customers, one thing they do pay attention to is privacy and data and how you're using that. And every conversation up to here at ETS this year is someone's brought up AI or data, and Joel, you talked about the data, but it also brings another layer of complexity when it comes to cybersecurity. Can you maybe talk about how this really complicates the cybersecurity aspect of the things you're doing and all the threats you're already trying to thwart?
Well, cybersecurity, fundamentally, since its inception, has been a complex problem. Primarily because you don't know what the threat actors are doing at any one point in time. Now, to me, the evolution of cyber, particularly in our industry, and I've been the senior officer responsible for cybersecurity for about 15 years, and I still have hair, is that we have become better as an industry, I think better as a nation at the prospect of sharing intelligence, better at understanding the true nature of the threat. I get the opportunity to interact with some of the technology companies that we do business with around cybersecurity, and something in the last couple of months I've heard that is really interesting and relevant is that the threat actors or the bad guys, they really aren't breaking in anymore, they're logging in. Yeah. Because we have given them somehow credentials to do so. And with digitization and with all the advancements we're talking about, basically your landscape upon which they have the opportunities to do that type of logging in have expanded greatly. And companies like Oncor and others continue to invest not just in tool sets. To me, the most important aspect of our cybersecurity posture is our people, because we are all the biggest weaknesses for our organizations. We are all the targets because, as I said before, predominantly people want to find a way to log into your environments and not break into your environments. People want to use human nature. They want to use the good nature of people in general against them in order to find a way to disrupt, to exfiltrate data, and then hold you ransom. Another complexity that I'm not sure even I appreciated 10 years ago was just the risks associated with all the partners with which you do business. Because it's not just Oncor, in my case, that we need to worry about, it's everybody that we do business with. Because you're all interacting digitally in some form or fashion. You're sharing information, and a big part of ransomware and some of the modern threat vectors is to exfiltrate data and then hold you ransom for it. We've all heard about what's going on in the healthcare industry recently. The same risks are there for us as the supply chain of delivering electricity in the state of Texas. So more complex. Our people are much better at it. I'm sure we all have the challenge of, how do you first attract and then retain some of the best people in some of these positions, like in cybersecurity. It's very difficult for us as an industry because we don't tend to be on the high end of the pay scales. But at Oncor, at least, the reason that people decide to come and work there and then stay there is this culture of being first responders. And we have a lot of ex-military folks that are a part of our cybersecurity function. And I've found over time that people will invest and become invested in our mission, which is to ensure the reliability, and if something happens to reliability, fix it as fast as you possibly can. Same thing applies to cybersecurity. It's about how are you prepared, and then how good is your response when and if something happens.
Yeah. And Jason, it is such a focus of our customer base. We have 11 utility C-suite executives, we call them our Utility Strategic Advisory Board, but they identified this issue as arguably existential and wanted us to have a focus on it. So we were able to sort of collate a group of 7 cybersecurity companies. It's called our Security Collective, but it is specifically designed to be sort of a belt and suspenders in addition to the baseline protocols that exist in wireless technologies. So, it is something you have to be constantly evolving. And, Joel's right. I mean, it begins with your with your employees, but you also have to, be comfortable being innovative and trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Thank you. So we have a few minutes left. Would like to get at least 1 or 2 questions in here. Drew?
So I want to first say that I heard 5 customers, 2 partners, and no ratepayers. This is a huge accomplishment. Congratulations, gentlemen. As Texas continues to see an influx of new residents and the challenges continue to mount, what do you see as the grid of the future? Like, what is your vision of the grid of the future? And what regulatory changes need to be made in order for us to get there?
How much time do we have?
Yeah, right.
You go first.
No, second. Definitely second. This is how we do it in my family. I'm not first. Yeah.
Okay, I can't speak to the engineering of the grid, but I can speak to, as a customer of it, my expectations. More options. Clearly, we're going to have to be able to use different types of distributed generation as tools during certain times. We're going to have options for customers. We're going to have close to perfect information, which would allow us to effectively manage what in Texas is a rapidly growing grid. And what do you need from legislators and regulators is the attention of how does our market need to evolve in order to meet this evolving demand. I've lived in this market for a long time, and I think it's a great one. And I think that we are all part of the supply chain delivering electricity, everybody we just talked about, including legislators and regulators. And I think we're all focused on what is the right moves to ensure reliability and that we can meet the demands and continue to support the Texas Miracle, which benefits everybody here.
I mean, I would add patience from a regulator's perspective, right? The new reality of distributed energy or virtual power plants or dealing with data centers and AI and more and more and more. So, sort of patience from a regulator perspective and a recognition that utilities, even if they're not providing the generation, they're still the providers of last resort. So you got to give them, some patience as this new reality comes into play.
Well, Chris, Joe, it's been a great conversation. It's a great peek of how we get there and all the challenges we face. But I really like that you guys both honed in on the opportunities at hand there. Gentlemen, we could have continued probably all day. We do appreciate you coming out to ETS24. And audience, thank you out there, and stay tuned for your next session.